The room went silent. Forks froze midair. All eyes turned to her. "Will you take over for this old man?" she said, kneeling with a plastic ring in her hand, her voice carrying across the room like a dagger dressed as a joke. Laughter erupted, but not the kind that warms you. It was sharp, forced, cruel. Her friends giggled. Someone whispered, "Jesus Christ," under their breath. And across from me, the coworker she aimed the prank at, Kyle, looked like he wanted to sink into the birthday cake. But me? I didn't laugh. I didn't shout. I didn't storm off like a man on fire. I simply folded my napkin, placed it carefully beside my untouched plate, and stood. No words, no scene, just silence. And yet that silence cut through the room louder than anything she said. Outside, the night air felt cold against my skin, sharper than the humiliation I'd just endured. 8 years of marriage and I wasn't a partner anymore. I was a punchline, a prop in her show. She knew what she was doing. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't just joking. She wanted an audience and she got one. What she didn't know, though, was that she also lit a fuse I had been quietly preparing for years. Because while she thought her prank was the climax, for me, it was just the trigger. And that's where this story really begins. Before I tell you how I turned that moment of humiliation into the cleanest, most devastating revenge she, and even her father, never saw coming, I need to take you inside my head, into the planning, the precision, the way silence became my weapon. This wasn't rage, it wasn't chaos, it was structure, and every piece of it was already waiting in the shadows. But first, quick pause. If you've ever watched someone underestimate the wrong person, or if you've been there yourself, you'll want to hear how this ends. Drop a comment with the most humiliating thing you've seen someone pull in public, hit subscribe, and like this video. Trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next, because while she thought she ended me with a laugh, she had no idea I was about to end her with a signature. I didn't go back to the party. I didn't answer her texts or the calls that lit up my phone as I walked through the city streets. I just let the silence build, because silence, when wielded correctly, is terrifying. By the time I got home, balloons still bobbed lazily in the living room and the half-eaten cake sat under plastic wrap, like nothing had changed. But everything had. I hung up my coat, glanced at the house we built, or at least the house she liked to say, "we built," and felt something shift inside me. That's when I walked into my office. It had been years since I'd opened the bottom drawer of that old cedar desk. The smell of dust and printer toner greeted me as if it had been waiting. Inside was a thick navy blue binder, our post-nuptial agreement. Funny thing is, it was her idea. She'd spun it over brunch years ago, mimosa in hand, acting like it was the responsible modern thing to do. "Just a formality," she'd said. "I'd never use it anyway." And she hadn't even read it, just signed, lipstick smudge still visible in the margin of the page. But I read it, twice, then filed it away. And as I flipped through it again that night, the words on page 12 caught my eye, words I had insisted on including back then. In the event that either party engages in conduct deemed publicly humiliating or reputationally harmful to the other during a family gathering or milestone event, jointly held assets may be reassessed and reclassified under individual trust protections. Clause 17b, buried deep in the paperwork, waiting for a moment exactly like this. Her joke had been more than just cruel. It was public, deliberate, and witnessed by dozens of people, including her own father. And now, thanks to her arrogance, it had become legally actionable. I sat there, binder open, heart steady. This wasn't anger anymore. This was clarity. She thought she'd embarrassed me. What she had really done was hand me the keys to a weapon I had forged years earlier. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to beg. I had structure. I had Clause 17b. And now, I had a plan. The next morning, the house was unnervingly quiet. She was still asleep upstairs, probably dreaming up excuses, probably rehearsing lines she thought could smooth over what she called just a joke. But I wasn't interested in apologies. I was interested in leverage. I brewed coffee, black, no sugar, the way I always did on heavy days. My laptop glowed softly on the kitchen table, and with a few deliberate keystrokes I opened a secure email portal. My lawyer, Burrow, was an old friend of my late uncle's. Sharp, discreet, the kind of man who could weaponize a footnote. I typed just 3 words into the subject line. Clause 17B activation. No explanation. He'd understand. Before I hit send, I attached everything. The postnup, the trust inheritance from my uncle, even the blurry video a mutual friend had recorded the night of the party. Her on one knee, plastic ring in hand, the whole room laughing while I sat stone-faced. The humiliation was undeniable, time-stamped and witnessed. When I pressed send, there was no thrill, no rush of adrenaline, just a steady calm. This wasn't revenge in the movies. This was paperwork. Quiet, surgical paperwork that didn't need shouting to cut deep. By noon, Burrow replied, short, precise. Understood. Documents are enforceable. Drafting reassignment. Confirm. Notify her now or deliver by mail. I stared at that last line for a long moment. Notify her now or let the envelope arrive like a guillotine, dropping without warning. I typed back one word, mail, because vengeance doesn't always come with a scream. Sometimes it comes with a knock at the door and an official envelope that strips away illusions in black and white. I closed the laptop, sipped the bitter coffee, and looked out the window at the backyard. The same backyard where she had turned me into a joke. The balloons were still there, sagging, half deflated. The wine corks still littered the grass. It looked like nothing had changed. But everything had. The ground she thought was solid was already shifting beneath her feet. And she didn't even know it yet. It came faster than even I expected. Bureaucracy usually crawls, but when the right lawyer pushes the right clause, the system hums like clockwork. By the 3rd morning, she got the first email. Polite, bureaucratic, sterile. Notice of reassessment. Property equity under review. She barely skimmed it. I could tell by the way she tossed her phone on the counter, muttering, weird, probably some glitch. But glitches don't arrive by courier. At 11 a.m., a knock echoed through the house. Not frantic, not threatening, professional. The kind of knock that makes your stomach dip before your mind catches up. She opened the door barefoot, wineglass in hand, though it wasn't even noon. The courier didn't smile. He just asked her to sign. She scribbled her name, shut the door, and stood staring at the envelope like it might bite. "Babe, did you order something legal-looking?" she called out, her tone too high, too rehearsed. I didn't answer. I wanted her to open it without my shadow softening the blow. The tearing of paper echoed down the hallway. Then silence. Then the faintest, no, 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 no. When I finally walked into the kitchen, the pages were splayed across the counter. Her hands shook as she gripped one sheet, the clause highlighted in crisp black ink. Her signature stared back at her, lipstick smudge still faintly pressed into the corner of the page. Her eyes darted to me, wide, panicked. This isn't real. This was years ago. We weren't serious." I didn't reply. I simply tapped the line where she had initialed, twice. The sound of my fingertip on paper was louder than any scream. Her voice broke. You wouldn't actually do this. Over a joke?" I leaned against the counter, calm. "You didn't tell a joke. You staged a show. And you picked the wrong audience." She went pale, the color draining from her face as the reality finally cut through her denial. The house she flaunted as ours, the symbol she paraded at parties, wasn't hers anymore. It hadn't been for years. She just hadn't noticed. That was the beauty of silence. It doesn't just destroy. It lets them realize they handed you the match. The door slammed so hard the picture frames rattled. Her father's voice boomed before he even crossed the threshold. "What the hell have you done to my daughter?" He didn't come alone. He carried that old authority like a badge, the kind of presence that once made me nod, smile, and swallow my irritation. Tonight, though, it felt hollow. She clung to his arm like a child, tears she couldn't summon for me suddenly flowing for him. "Dad, he's trying to take the house, over some stupid prank." He shot me a glare meant to pin me to the wall. "You think this makes you a man? Hiding behind fine print? Manipulating a young woman who didn't even know what she was signing?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even move. I simply slid the binder across the counter. Pages marked, signatures dated, witnesses noted. "Read," I said quietly. He snatched it up, eyes scanning fast. He muttered, "Clause 17, subsection B." His lips moved again when he reached her initials, when he saw his own signature as witness. His face paled. "This doesn't mean anything," he barked, but it cracked, thin and brittle. "It means everything," I said. "And you knew it. You were there when she signed." He slammed the folder shut like the act itself could erase ink. "You won't get away with this. I'll call my lawyer. I'll fight this." "Already tried," I replied. "Your lawyer confirmed it this morning. Airtight." The silence that followed was thick. His breathing turned ragged. She stared at him like he'd just betrayed her too. "Dad, do something." But the old man didn't move. He just rubbed his temples, muttering, "You've cost me. You've cost us everything." Her voice broke into a desperate whimper. It was just a joke. And that was the moment he snapped. Not at me, but at her. His voice dropped low, venomous. "Do you even realize what you triggered? That clause was never supposed to be real. You made it real." She froze, horror dawning. She hadn't just mocked me that night. She had detonated her father's illusion of control, too. For the first time, I saw it. She wasn't just losing me, or the house. She was losing the one man she thought would always stand behind her. And in that collapse, my silence spoke louder than any vengeance ever could. The county clerk's website doesn't play fanfare. No warning sirens, no dramatic music, just a dull refresh and a single new line on the screen. Owner, Daniel Weston. Sole proprietor. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the monitor painting the room in blue. My hands didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. Instead, a strange calm spread through me, like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. The transfer was official. The house was mine, and mine alone. Across town, her inbox chimed. I knew because Burrow, my lawyer, copied me. Notification, title transfer finalized. The email was polite, clinical, like a bank statement. But inside those sterile lines was the end of her empire. She read it 3 times, scrolling back up as if the words might change. They didn't. They never do. Legal text doesn't bend to charm or tears. Minutes later, my phone lit up. Her name. Then again. Then again. I didn't answer. The voicemail transcription filled my screen anyway. What is this about the house? Why are they saying my name is gone? This has to be a mistake, right? Call me back, please. But there were no mistakes, only signatures. Hers, her father's, witnessed, dated, sealed. By the afternoon, the databases updated. Zillow, county records, mortgage apps, all reflected the shift. Public, permanent. And as fast as the news spread to her, it spread to her father. I heard later he stormed into the zoning office, red-faced, demanding to see a supervisor. He rattled off old golf buddy connections, even threatened to call in favors from a state senator. Didn't matter. The clerk just slid the file across the counter and pointed at the highlighted clause. His daughter's initials were there in black ink. There was no loophole, no appeal. That night, she sat on the porch of her father's house, still in her work clothes, scrolling through rental listings on her phone. Her eyes were hollow, her shoulders slumped. For the first time, it wasn't a performance. It was panic. And me? I poured myself 2 fingers of bourbon, let the burn settle into my chest, and looked around the living room. The same house she once called ours now carried only my name. She had tried to humiliate me in front of a crowd. I had answered with a signature that erased her from the deed. Clean, quiet, absolute. It was past 10 when I heard the knock. Not the confident rap of someone who belongs there, but a hesitant, uneven rhythm. I opened the door, and there she stood, not in her curated dresses, not with her perfect hair, but in sweatpants and a hoodie too big for her frame, bare feet in designer flip-flops that suddenly looked ridiculous. Her eyes were red, raw, no mascara to hide behind. For once, she wasn't performing. She was unraveling. "I thought you loved me," she whispered. The words trembled in the night air, fragile as glass. I met her gaze. I did. That truth landed between us like a dropped plate, already shattered before it hit the floor. She reached out, trying to close the space between us, but I stepped back just enough. The screen door swung shut, separating us with a thin line of mesh. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "It was a joke," she said louder now, her voice cracking. "Kyle knew it. Everyone knew it. You're blowing this so far out of proportion." I let the silence hang heavy, pressing down harder than any argument could. "Please," she tried again, softer this time. "You can't just take the house. We built this together." I slowly raised a hand, tapping the paper she had signed, her own signature damning her. "You signed it. Twice. You knew what it meant." Her face drained. The bravado slipped, replaced by the hollow panic of someone realizing the ground beneath them had vanished. She leaned against the doorframe like her legs might give way. "You're punishing me," she murmured. "No," I replied evenly. "I'm precise. You knew that the day you mocked me in front of everyone. Precision is what you triggered." For the first time, she had no comeback. No laugh, no spin, no performance. Just silence. She tried one last angle, her voice small. "Where am I supposed to go? That's for you and your father to figure out. Or maybe Kyle. Whoever's willing to get down on one knee this time." Her lips trembled, her eyes shimmered, but no tears fell. Because deep down, she knew this wasn't about cruelty. It was about consequence. I closed the door gently, not a slam, just a click. The quiet after was deafening. He insisted we meet at his place. Of course he did. Men like him always cling to home field advantage. The big house with polished hardwood floors, oil paintings of ancestors who thought loyalty meant obedience. When I stepped inside, the air was thick with his pride. He didn't offer a drink, didn't bother with pleasantries. He went straight for the attack. "You screwed her over," he barked, pacing across the rug like a general rehearsing orders. "I don't care what your lawyer says. You knew she didn't understand what she was signing." I set the black folder on his table and opened it calmly. No theatrics, just paper. The first page, his original contribution to the down payment, signed without any claim of ownership. The second, the refinance agreement from 6 years ago, with her signature clearly removing herself from the mortgage. And the third, the post-nuptial agreement, Clause 17B, her initials beside it. Lipstick smudged faintly at the edge. He leaned in, reading in fast gulps. His face flushed crimson. "She didn't read this," he snapped. "That's not my responsibility," I said evenly. He slammed a hand on the table, voice cracking. "You manipulated her. You knew she wouldn't understand legal language." "She signed it twice," I reminded him, "and you were there when she told you she trusted me to handle the refinance. Remember that?" His jaw tightened. For a moment I saw it hit him, his own memory colliding with the truth. "You're hiding behind a technicality," he spat. I leaned forward just enough. "No, I'm standing on the foundation you helped pour. You just never bothered to read the blueprint." That silenced him. For a beat, the only sound was the creak of his leather chair. Then he pointed a trembling finger at me, desperate now. "You think this makes you a man? Stripping your wife's security away over a joke? I pulled out one last page, a still frame from the video. His daughter on one knee, plastic ring extended toward Kyle, laughter echoing in the background, and in the corner, his own face, pale, unamused. His lips parted, but no words came. "This wasn't a joke," I said quietly. "This was public humiliation, and you saw it." His eyes flickered, anger, shame, defeat, all tangled together. For the first time, the man who thought he controlled every boardroom, every family dinner, every deal, looked small, and he knew it. The silence after the lawyer's words was unbearable. Her father sat back slowly, as if the strings inside him had been cut. His broad shoulders, once so commanding, sagged under the weight of a truth he couldn't bargain away. His hands, usually steady, shook as he set the papers back on the table. "He owns the house," the lawyer had said, and it echoed in his head like a verdict. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I left the folder open in front of him, letting the document stare back like a mirror he didn't want to face. When I left, he didn't shout or threaten. He just sat there, lips moving without sound, as though searching for an excuse that would never come. For the first time, the man who prided himself on being the patriarch, the protector, the provider, looked utterly defeated. That night, she joined him for dinner. Pasta, untouched, cold on the plate. He paced the kitchen, muttering, replaying every detail. She tried to speak, to minimize, to frame it as a misunderstanding. "It was just a prank, Dad. A bad joke. He's overreacting." He stopped pacing. His face drained of color. "What exactly did you say?" he asked. His tone wasn't curious. It was sharp, surgical. She hesitated, then repeated the line. "I said, will you take over for this old man?" And then I laughed. The fork slipped from his hand, clattering against the plate. He didn't look at her. He just shook his head slowly like he'd been struck. "You made him invoke Clause 17, he whispered. She blinked. "What?" Her father's eyes, once filled with a kind of protective arrogance, were cold now. "That clause wasn't supposed to mean anything. It was just a safeguard, a formality. But you gave him the trigger. Do you understand what you've done?" For the first time, she saw it. Not just me leaving, not just the reassignment of the deed, but her father, Isud pride, collapsing under the realization that his daughter's arrogance had cost him everything he thought he controlled. He didn't yell. He didn't comfort her. He walked away into his office and shut the door. And she sat there alone, staring at the fork on the plate, finally realizing she hadn't just lost me. She had lost him too. She knocked on my door just after 10 at night. No crowd, no audience, no plastic rings or cruel laughter this time. Just her, barefoot in designer flip-flops, hoodie pulled tight around her face like it could shield her from the truth. When I opened the door, she whispered as if the world might shatter if she spoke too loudly. "I thought you loved me." And I did. Once. That was the tragedy. That was the part she could never erase. But love is not armor. Love does not excuse humiliation. Love does not survive being turned into a punchline. She begged to talk, her voice trembling, but my lawyer had warned me, and I had nothing left to say. So I stepped outside, letting the screen door fall closed behind me, a soft barrier more final than a slammed door. "You're punishing me," she said, clutching her arms. "No," I answered calmly. "I'm finishing what you started. You made the joke. I just wrote the ending." Her eyes shimmered, but no tears came. She was still performing, still waiting for me to break, to cave, to reach for her hand. But this time there was no script for her to hide behind. When I turned to go back inside, she blurted out one last desperate card. "Kyle's gay. It was never real. It was just a harmless prank." I stopped, looked her in the eyes and said, "So the knife you used was rubber. Do you really think that makes the wound any less deep?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. She knew it. For once, there was no escape, no clever line. Just silence. The same silence I had weaponized since the night she mocked me. I closed the door softly. No slam, no shouting. Just the click of a lock, clean and final. The next day, the deed updated on the county clerk's website. My name, and only my name, listed as sole proprietor. Her father tried everything. Calls, favors, even pulling strings with old contacts. But airtight paperwork doesn't bend to pride. That evening, she texted me a single word. Please. I didn't reply. Because sometimes justice doesn't come as fire or fury. Sometimes justice is silence, the kind that leaves someone alone in the ruins they built with their own arrogance. And for me, that silence was freedom.